Today on The Europeans, we dive into the world of organ trafficking. Joining me is the investigative reporter Gunther Latsch, whose reporting uncovered a shocking trade in kidneys.
If you have the information where to look at, it's quite easy to find, and it's shockingly open.
From Kenya to Germany, this network operates in plain sight, exploiting vulnerable donors and desperate patients.
They're spit out by the system, They get their money and then the whole thing is over.
Stay with us as we explore the findings of this remarkable investigation and dive into what they reveal about the shortcomings of Europe's organ transplant system. I hope you find it very interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Gunter, on The Europeans. We're really excited to talk about your investigation. You've reported on Chinese prisons, eco-friendly undertakers, Cristiano Ronaldo's finances, the link between the peace movement and the extreme right, just to name a few topics. How did you come to report on the kidney trade?
Well, that was the merit of my colleague Heiner Hoffmann, who was based in Nairobi, Kenya. There has been some reporting about organ trafficking in Western Kenya, and he went to the region, to Eldoret and to Oyugis, which is a small village where more than 100 young men have given their kidneys for small sums of money, about 2,000 euros or dollars. And when he made his reporting, it was last year in spring, we got contacted by a guy who was working for the DCIG. This is the DICG. This is the Declaration of Istanbul Custodian Group, and they had even the name of the organization, Medlead. That was the starting point for us.
And this organization, Medlead, it's an organization that acquires these kidneys and sells them. They've been in operation for over 3 years. And in some ways, it's kind of been an open secret. And in some ways, it's quite surprising that this hasn't become an international scandal much sooner. Why do you think it's taken so long to come out?
Well, I think, first of all, it was seemingly public when you have the first hint, then it's easy to find. But then you could see the videos, the people who got their kidneys in Kenya made for the Medlead company, and but if you see, there were only it was a small audience, 40 up to 50 people who watched these videos. You could see it on YouTube and Instagram. You need a first hint. That means the name of the company, or you know exactly what you're looking for. You never try to search the internet, or we didn't try to search the internet with something like organ trafficking, because you don't expect that you get valid results, And we were really astonished when we saw how publicly all this was advertised when we first had the information where to look at. So that's the secret about it. If you have the information where to look at, it's quite easy to find, and it's shockingly open. It was a German website. It was registered in Germany, a German company, and they were openly advertising get a new kidney in 6 weeks, within 6 weeks, which is legally not feasible, never and nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I found most striking about your reporting was that at the center of your story in Der Spiegel, there's this woman called Sabina Fischer-Kugler who received a kidney from someone in the Caucasus and flew to Kenya. Why do you think she was so willing to be so open about it in your piece? I mean, she even had her photos there.
Well, that was a big surprise for us too, because what we did when we saw the videos, we went through the internet with a face recognition program, and you can find all these people because they say their first names, they have face to camera, they're not hidden, and if you have a face recognition program, you get to their Facebook or whatever accounts, and you can find them quite easily. And we found about 6 or 8 people in Germany, and we contacted them all. Most of them were willing to talk in the beginning and even agreed to be interviewed. But a few days later, seemingly after talking to a lawyer, they said no, or even went at us with, we sue you if you publish my name, all that. And Sabina Fischer-Kugler was the only one who said yes, I think, because she was already a kind of public figure in Germany, because she had her first kidney transplant, legal kidney transplant, when she was 25. And she advertised all the time in local newspapers and even in nationwide that people should agree to give their kidneys after death, to have a organ donor card and all that. So she was for years already advocating new rules on donating, and that's what perhaps she convinced her to talk to us. We didn't really expect her to go public with her full name and all that, but to our big surprise, she said, well, sure, I'll do. Because she was so convinced that the system in Germany and the system in a lot of other countries is so bad for people who need transplant organs that she should advertise for even more, let's say, unorthodox ways, which she was quite aware. Like, you could see that she said that this was seemingly not legal, but I signed a paper where they said that I didn't purchase a kidney, I just pay for the medical services. So she was already very eager to make sure that this is legally okay.
But so you think she was at peace with her decision?
Oh, she still is.
Yeah.
She still is. She said, and this was a shocking moment in the interview, where she said, well, listen, after all, at least I have a new kidney. So she was a bit worried when we told her about the price that the donor might have get for his kidney.
Yeah, so she paid around something like 200,000 euros, right?
I think exactly. No, she paid 150.
Okay.
She could have paid 200,000. This was the big package, the no worry package, as they name it, because if the first kidney isn't accepted by your body, you get a second one. That's the 200,000 euro package. For just one single kidney, you pay 150.
Well, but that's still an extraordinary markup, and considering that the person who is giving their kidney is only getting a few thousand euros worth of money.
But there's still a lot of volunteers, In Eldoret, there were two separate systems. There was one totally African system. That's how it started. So rich Somalis and rich Kenyans buy kidneys from Kenyan donors who get about $2,000 up to four. Some of them got $4,000, which is a large amount of money for a poor guy without work in Western Kenya. So they still think this is the money to buy a car, to start a taxi business, something like that.
Okay.
And there are a lot of volunteers, more volunteers than reluctant people in Kenya ready to sell their kidneys. And the same thing applies to a lot of countries of the former Soviet Union. That means Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan. These are the actual donor countries for the second, as we call it, the second system. Europeans and Israelis get kidneys from people from Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, or Kazakhstan who were flown into Kenya and then gave their kidney there.
What do we know about these people that provide their kidneys? And what does their life look like after they've sold an organ to Medlead?
Well, there's no care at all. That's what we know. We talked to one or two of them. If they have problems, health problems, they won't be accepted to come back and get their problems solved. And it's even dangerous for people who paid a lot of money, like the story of an Israeli woman shows that we reported in our article, because she got a kidney which never would have been transplanted if medically serious people were responsible for the transplantation, because the tissue comparison stuff, the blood comparison stuff in the laboratory said don't transplant. No, there's no match, And that was even marked on the papers we got. And they transplanted it nevertheless just because they got the money. And the kidney was Well, the kidney, I think it was taken out 2 or 4 weeks later. And
Wow.
she sold a house to buy this kidney. Now she's on dialysis again and lives in a small flat because she can't afford more and to get paid all their money to these crooks who treated her in Kenya.
Wow. And going back to the people who donate their kidneys for a moment, are they also putting themselves potentially in legal danger by accepting money for an organ?
Depends on the legislation of the country you come from. I'm not familiar with all the legislative acts in the different countries. In Germany, it's illegal because paragraph 18 of the German Transplantation Act forbids any money to be involved in a donation or reception of organs. So this is quite clear. This is clear in the most of the countries who signed the Declaration of Istanbul. I mentioned before, this is the declaration where the Transplant Society tries to fight illegal organ trafficking, to prevent organ trafficking. Those countries, and Kenya signed it, by the way, those countries are quite clear legally. But as we learned, in Kenya, it's a bit different because if somebody sells his organ, it's not automatically illegal like it is in Germany. This is a gray zone where they're acting on. I'm not familiar with that, unfortunately, how it was in Kazakhstan. We tried to find out, but didn't come very far, and then we had a deadline to go out.
Mm-hmm. And how did the company Medlead respond to the allegations in your investigation?
Well, to my astonishment, they answered a list of questions. I sent them 40 questions, very detailed about our findings. And, well, they said, well, listen, this is all legal. You got your information in illegal ways. They accused us in bribing medical personnel in Kenya. They threatened to sue us in court, but this was all the normal ballyhoo, you know. We just ignored it. We quoted some of that, but I thought they wouldn't answer at all. And to my astonishment, they answered. This was strange. Spolansky himself, at least he signed as Robert Spolansky. Maybe somebody else has written it and he just signed it. I don't know, but they answered.
Wow. Well, you write in the article, it is a business that is just as incompatible with too much knowledge as it is with too much conscience, one that operates because of the need and because of the benefits and the profits it produces. Yeah. Are you just talking about kidneys here, or is kidney capitalism a symptom of a larger issue?
It applies to a certain extent to the so-called split liver transplantation, because that's quite easy to do, which is something you can do with legal donors, you know. It's medically, from the medical point of view, it's more complicated, but it's not very complicated because for the donor, because they take a part of his liver and he lives on with the rest. So there's not, there's not one kidney removed or your liver removed, just get removed half of it and it grows again. So all you need is somebody willing to give you half of his liver. Mm-hmm. And as we learned afterwards, that this is quite common, because if people from rich Arab countries come along with relatives, so-called relatives, mostly from Bangladesh or Indonesia, for split liver transplantation in capitalist countries and highly developed countries medically seen, this works too. That's something we're working on now. In other, it's difficult if you're looking for a heart. If somebody gives you his heart or his lung, he must be dead. Mm-hmm. So it applies mostly to kidneys because a lot of countries, a lot of medical systems are meanwhile capable to do this surgery in a state-of-the-art way. And the willingness of the donors is more common because, you have one, they think you have two, you can give one, get a amount of money which makes your life easier. So kidneys are, I think, 80% of the business, more or less.
I find myself feeling a bit conflicted when reading your article because, of course, I feel, I notice myself judging the decision of someone like Sabina who's decided to pay all this money to get a kidney that someone's been paid for. But on the other hand, she's in a desperate situation with kidney failure where she needs to find a kidney. And I was wondering, do you have any sense of what a country like Germany could be doing better to make sure that someone like Sabina has more options? Because she really didn't have options in her own country, in her home country, to do this in a safer way, did she?
Well, not really, because it's a waiting list which says it's 8 years up to 10 if you get legally a kidney from a donor who's dead, you know.
Yeah. So she'd have to be on dialysis.
Or you have a relative who's willing to give you his or hers. That's also a possibility. But the biggest problem is the German law system, because we have just the opt-in solution, which means you have explicitly to declare your will to be an organ donor. In countries like Spain, it's totally different. Everybody who doesn't opt out is a donor if he dies in a car accident or whatsoever. So it's legal, and you have not these problems. I think the waiting list in Spain is half a year for a kidney, which, fun fact, leads to the situation that a lot of EU citizens went to Spain, live there, pay Spanish health system costs, and get on the Spanish donor list. And as far as I know, the Spanish are already trying to change their legal conditions as far as transplant services are concerned, because they have a kind of medical tourism that people in need from Germany, you know, settle in Spain and become Spanish residents, and they automatically then are part of the system, of the medical system too, and they have the right to get a kidney. So this is the legal way. You can do medical tourism or organ trafficking.
What has the response been like to your story, both in Germany and in Kenya?
In Kenya, it was overwhelming. We never would have thought that, because there was like we revealed, there was a inspection on site in Eldoret in 23, and the report of the commission who did this was more or less hidden in the drawers of the ministry. And the Kenyan newspapers, Kenyan media in general, immediately took over the story and accused their government, and the new government said, "Oh, well, listen, what a surprise, we didn't know that." They sure knew it, and they said, "Well, we take action now." There's a new commission who is investigating the whole thing again. Ranjan Mishra, the guy who leads who is the owner of the Eldoret Medlead clinic, where the transplantation took place, was a member of parliament in Kenya, and he was the head of the Biovax Commission appointed by President Ruto. This is all on hold now, and there's an investigation ongoing. This was overwhelming. In Germany, it was quiet, very quiet. We were astonished because a few papers told the story, but there was no discussion about the legal conditions and the whole situations in Germany, which is astonishing, because in Germany we learned that there are a lot of people, a lot more people who have transplants abroad than we thought before. It's quite easy to detect, because everybody who's get a transplant organ abroad or a transplant organ abroad has to go home for medical care, and he shows up in dialysis centers, or he shows up in a nephrologist clinic, and if they ask, "Where did you get your kidney?" Well, the answer is, "I didn't get it here, not in Germany, and got it abroad." And so the suspicion is there that this is a not legally acquired organ, and they are normally obliged to report this But as far as I know, only a few doctors and clinics did this in the last year.
So you don't have an idea of actual numbers of people
No,
that do it each
no,
year?
no. Yeah, the interesting thing is these guys do this for more than 20 years. So they ran around the world. They started in Colombia. They have been in the Philippines. They have been in Sri Lanka. They have been in Kosovo. It's always Polanski and his partner Boris Wolfman. So they're known for years. They have been sentenced in Israel. There was a warrant, an Interpol warrant on them, and they're still on the run, probably in Turkey. Everybody knows that they are working in Turkey. If they live there, it's not quite well, it's not really known, but if somebody would like to get them, he could. And seemingly nobody wants.
Yeah, well, you'd think an investigation like this would mean that someone might be more likely to want to get them, but yeah. We'll see.
I don't think that newspaper articles can change conditions in countries. Sometimes they do, but it's very rare.
Well, let's see what happens. Thank you for coming to join me today,
Thank you.
Gunther.
Thank you.